the fine print of love. Lowell, the etching of regret. Tipple Road is a steady street. It's the kind of place where the rhythm of life is predictable, measured in the reliable squeal of the trolley and the persistent hum of the city filtering west. I live here, and I work 5 days a week as an engraver at Tam Stationers, down near Rittenhouse. We deal in permanence. The crisp deboss of a monogram, the black-on-white certainty of an announcement. I handle invitations etched in gold. I handled hers. The first-line engagement suite. That's what the stationery package was called. 6 months before the disaster, I had proofed the heavy cream cardstock myself, running my thumb over the raised copperplate. Mr. and Mrs. Thomas C. Ricks request the honor of your presence at the marriage of their son, Lowell C. Partridge, to Alara D. Vance. The irony, I've learned, is a heavy, durable metal. The disaster occurred 5 years ago. I was 43, Alara was 39, and we were standing beneath an arbor dripping with white roses, the air thick with the scent of lilies and the expectation of hundreds of guests. Alara, radiant in silk, looked like a vision of certainty. She didn't run away before the ceremony. She stopped it at the pivotal moment, the "I do." "I can't," she whispered, the single word amplified horribly by the archaic church acoustics. My heart didn't break. It simply imploded, leaving a freezing vacuum where it had been. "I love you, Lowell," she added, an immediate lie of a postscript. "But I can't live a life based on what's comfortable. Julian is my wild card. He's the thing I couldn't ignore." Julian, her college flame, the one who had suddenly reappeared 3 weeks prior, specializing in the timely disruption of well-ordered lives. The subsequent silence was total, crushing. I stood there, trapped by the vows I hadn't made, while she turned, gathered the pale silk of her dress, and walked, didn't run, down the aisle and into the arms of a man wearing a suspiciously well-cut suit that looked far too casual for a wedding. My father, Thomas C. Ricks, a man of precise temperament, simply sighed from the front pew. That sigh cut deeper than any shout. The receiving line dissolved into polite, horrified chatter. I went to the empty ballroom, looked at the 5-tiered cake, and decided that if Alara valued chaos above structure, I would introduce a new structure into my own ruins. And that structure arrived in the form of Sylvie Morrow. Sylvie was Alara's maid of honor, her best friend since kindergarten. She had been standing shoulder to shoulder with me when the detonation occurred. She was the one who found me, hours later, staring blankly at the cake. "It was cruel," Sylvie said, her voice raw, not with pity for me, but with anger for Alara's recklessness. "She humiliated us all." Sylvie didn't comfort me. She saw the insult for what it was. We shared a bottle of champagne meant for the toast and spent the night discussing the meticulous flaws in Alara's character, the flightiness we had both tried to tame. 2 weeks later, I asked Sylvie to dinner. It wasn't love. It wasn't even about revenge, initially. It was about shared history and shared grievance. It was about finding someone whose timeline was precisely aligned with my own trauma. It was about proving to Alara, and to myself, that being the safe choice wasn't synonymous with being unlovable. 5 years later, Sylvie lives on Tipple Road with me. We have established a routine that is almost aggressively functional. I engrave wedding announcements all day, meticulously ensuring their permanence, and come home to the woman whose presence subtly screams impermanence to the rest of the world. And the world, especially Alara, watches. Part 2, Alara, the cost of the wild card. Julian calls me his escape artist. He loves that word. He loves the story of that day, the grand, theatrical choice I made, the choice that freed me from the elegant, predictable prison Lowell had built around us. I am 44 now. I live in Seattle. Julian and I have built a life defined by sharp angles and temporary leases, traveling between cities for his architectural commissions. It is everything Lowell wasn't. Spontaneous, unpredictable, and exhausting. Lowell was a beautiful man, meticulous and kind. He cared about my history, my family, and the longevity of our shared life plan. He was the sturdy oak tree I was supposed to lean against. But I realized on that altar, looking into his eyes, that I was marrying my father's approval, not my own desire. I was marrying the safety of Tipple Road. And safety, to me, felt like a slow, deliberate drowning. Julian offered the air. He offered risk. Making that walk down the aisle, away from Lowell, away from the future I had engraved on paper, was the most terrifying, exhilarating moment of my life. I hurt him terribly, but I saved myself. 2 months later, I heard about Lowell and Sylvie. I laughed, a brittle, harsh sound. Of course, I told Julian. Of course he would choose Sylvie. She's the natural progression. She's the backup plan distilled. Sylvie Morrow, my oldest friend. My conscience, actually. Sylvie was everything I was not. Loyal, responsible, and fiercely protective of boundaries. She had been disgusted by my public choice, but I knew, deep down, she was also envious of the freedom I seized. The dating of Lowell felt like a calculated betrayal, a move meant to sting. I tried to call her 3 times that first year. She never answered. I saw a picture last Christmas. Lowell and Sylvie, standing in front of their Philadelphia brownstone. They looked comfortable. They didn't look passionately in love, but they looked rooted. They were wearing matching gray sweaters. Julian joked that they looked like a pair of library clerks. I didn't laugh. Seeing them together, I felt a sharp, confusing pang. It wasn't regret for leaving Lowell. It was regret for losing Sylvie. Lowell had taken the one person who truly understood the geography of my soul. The good parts, the bad parts, and the parts that only a 40-year friendship can map out. I made the grand choice. I chose the wild card. And the price of that freedom wasn't just Lowell's pain, but the loss of my bedrock relationship. Sometimes, late at night, when Julian is sketching blueprints in the study and I'm alone in the silence, I realize that Lowell and Sylvie's relationship, built on the ashes of my wedding, might just be the most stable thing any of us have created. Maybe I pushed them together. Maybe that was my real, unintentional gift. But the thought is cold comfort. I still miss my friend. Part 3, Sylvie, the shared ground. The engraver's life is about precision. The weight of the paper, the depth of the bite into the steel plate, the timing of the press. Lowell brought that same unforgiving precision into our relationship. We are not a passionate couple. We are an intentional couple. 5 years. I am 45, Lowell is 48. We have the life Alara rejected. Quiet evenings, shared tax forms, the dependable certainty of the market on Tipple Road. When I started dating Lowell, everyone called me a traitor. My mother sent a passive-aggressive email about taking damaged goods. I didn't care. I was tired of being Alara's shadow, the sensible one, the responsible friend who always cleaned up the mess. Dating Lowell was a form of self-assertion, perhaps even a form of quiet vengeance against the woman who had always treated stability as a second-rate commodity. But over time, the revenge faded, replaced by something far more complex and difficult. Genuine affection built on mutual respect and shared woundedness. Lowell recognized the same deep-seated need for order in me that he possessed. He sees me not as Alara's friend, but as Sylvie. He appreciates the way I organize the spice rack, the way I budget for the future, the way I don't require grand gestures, just reliability. But the ghost of Alara is the third roommate in our quiet brownstone. We never speak her name, but we speak around her constantly. Every decision we make is a silent counterpoint to what Alara would have done. We don't travel spontaneously. We buy furniture that is classic and heavy. We seek permanence. We obsessively engrave our lives against the possibility of sudden flight. Last year, a terrible thing happened. Lowell's father, Thomas C. Ricks, passed away. Lowell was devastated. He always sought his father's approval, and the rejection at the wedding had wounded Mr. Ricks deeply. I attended the funeral service as Lowell's partner. Alara, having flown in from Amsterdam for Julian's current project, was also there. The collision was inevitable, and it happened over the canapes after the burial. "Sylvie," Alara said, her voice dripping with the calculated kindness she employs when trying to negotiate a fragile truce. "You look well." "I am well, Alara." "And Lowell?" She glanced across the room at him, where he was speaking quietly to his sister. "Is he happy?" The question was the ultimate ego trap. If I said yes, She'd know I had succeeded where she failed. If I said no, she'd pity him, reinforcing her belief that a life without passion was misery. I looked directly at her, past the expensive scarf and the jet-lagged glamour. Happy is a word for fairy tales, Alara. We are secure. We are deeply appreciated. We are building something that is meant to last. We are not a wild card. We are the foundation. And sometimes the foundation is the hardest thing to build. Her expression shifted. The calculated kindness evaporated, replaced by genuine sorrow. Not for Lowell, but for the friendship she had lost. Did you hurt me just to be with him, Sylvie? She asked quietly. I took a deep breath. This was the moment for truth, 5 years overdue. No. I didn't choose Lowell to hurt you, Alara. I chose him because you finally showed me that I deserved a choice, too. You chose chaos, I chose order. You showed us both that we couldn't be satisfied with the status quo. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get back to my man. I walked away from her. The years of subservience finally shed. I hadn't just dated her best friend's ex. I had claimed the life she had abandoned, and by doing so, I had finally claimed my own identity. Not merely as Alara's loyal second, but as Lowell's chosen first. Part 4. Lowell, the permanent engraving. The process of copperplate engraving is slow, deliberate, and requires pressure. You cannot rush the acid bath or force the press. You must wait for the metal to accept its fate. I am sitting in my workshop at Tam Stationers. I am designing a new font suite for wedding invitations. Stronger lines, deeper bite, less flourish. I am 48 years old, and my life has settled into the rhythm of the printing press. Reliable, repetitive, necessary. Sylvie and I are getting married next spring. Nothing dramatic. We're having a small ceremony in the garden of our home on Tipple Road. She chose the paper stock. She chose the script. I am currently engraving the proof. The names I etch are not the same as the names 5 years ago, but the process is identical. Commitment, once printed, is meant to be permanent. I reflect often on the path that brought me here. My initial motive with Sylvie was certainly wrapped up in the need for affirmation. The desire to show Alara that my life hadn't stopped just because she had chosen to throw a grenade into the chapel. But necessity gave way to genuine affection. We share more than history, we share a philosophy. We understand that stability is not stagnant. It is the foundation that allows life to continue, unbroken. I realize now that Alara's choice was not a statement about my lack of worth, but a statement about her own fundamental restlessness. She needed a life that felt like a series of dramatic escapes. And I, Lowell C. Partridge, needed a life that felt grounded, weighted. A few months ago, Sylvie and I were having coffee when the mail arrived. Postcard from Rome. It was from Alara. Just a quick note. Lowell, congratulations on your engagement. Sylvie told me. I wish you both the permanence you deserve. It was a good life, mostly. You were always the best part of the plan. It was the closest she'd come to an apology, perhaps even a compliment. I read the card, handed it to Sylvie, and watched her read it. She smiled, but there was a flicker of sadness in her eyes. The sadness of a friendship truly broken beyond repair. She's happy? Lowell asked, more a confirmation of the postcard's tone than a question. Sylvie shrugged, setting the postcard down next to the proof of our wedding invitation. She made her choice, Lowell, and we made ours. Happy is complicated, but we are here. That's what matters. She was right. The wild card is exciting, but it doesn't offer certainty. It doesn't offer the deep, bone-felt recognition of knowing where you belong. I pick up the steel plate of our invitation and run my fingers over the freshly bitten metal. The ink is drying. The commitment is set. The engraving reveals the truth. Alara chose chaos, and in doing so, she cleared the way for me to choose structure. She chose Julian, and I, in seeking solace and maybe a dash of spite, chose Sylvie. But somewhere along Tipple Road, on the hard, etched lines of our shared grief, the choices stopped being reflexive acts against Alara and became genuine affirmations of each other. The relationship that started as a rebound, a defiant gesture against humiliation, had deepened into something real, earned, and utterly permanent. Lowell C. Partridge, the predictable engraver, was finally etching his life's true masterpiece. And this time it wouldn't be erased. It was set in stone, copper, and commitment. Thanks for watching.